Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to TED Talks Ball. Got a Thursday afternoon edition. Steph Sanchez in the house. You may know her on Twitter at Steph49K, at 49K Pod, and at GS Pods for Gold Standard Podcasts. Steph, welcome. Thanks for joining. Let people know what you got coming up. Anything you want to promote. We can do it at the end of the show too. But anything I may have missed?
No, you pretty much covered it all. Thanks for having me. I'll do the whole this is what I have coming up at the end of the show, I guess.
Sure. That sounds good. Outstanding. Well, thanks for joining. Let's see. We already have some audience folks here, so let's call them out real quick. We got Bebop Jones in the house coming to us from the Philly area saying, hey, happy Thursday to all. He's giving us some sunglasses and some palm trees too. So thanks, Bebop. Appreciate you being here. I guess the hot news of the day is schedule leaks. But those are kind of fluid, and I'm just kind of picking up things here or there. But I guess the most recent thing I saw was Steelers in Pittsburgh opening day. Maybe
Yeah, week one.
That seemed like a pretty cool opening day. I mean, not home opening day, not home opener, but season opener, if you will. My co-host from First and Ted, Aaron Labigan, was threatening to maybe go, and that would be his first time ever going to an NFL football game, which is pretty crazy. He does such a great job covering the Niners, and it blows me away that he's never been to a Niner game. So,
yeah, everyone has a different first game experience, right? Some happens a little later than others.
Yeah, mine was at the Stick for sure. Back in, I think it was the 80s, but then I was a season ticket holder in the 90s there. Most notably, the first year my buddy and I got tickets, we got the same seat in adjoining rows. So he was sitting in front of me, or I guess I was in front of him. And when we'd score a touchdown, I'd have to lean back and get a high five from, because he's sitting directly behind me. We called it Goose and Maverick, kind of like Top Gun, because not like the usual side by side like you would normally get for season tickets. But then later on, we were able to get next to each other. So crazy stuff. But let's see here. As far as what are your thoughts on some of the other scheduled things? So like the Eagles, looks like it's week 13, and we knew it was going to be in Philly. Like that was kind of a weird one because it's like it leaked and then they deleted the tweet. So some people thought maybe it was false information, but it seems like that's feeling pretty confident now.
I didn't know that did the 49ers delete the tweet? I didn't.
No, it was like some guy from Philly, some radio station, WGOT. I don't know exactly what the call sign was, but I remember a lot of people starting to tweet about it. And then I talked to Coach Yak yesterday morning, and he was saying, oh, well, they deleted it. So we're like, oh, well, either it's just that it came out too soon and they said, wait to publicize it, or, then you always wonder, actually, is it really true? Especially if it's a source that you don't know to be. This is the time of year where there's all kinds of crazy sources making things. Like, for instance, I saw somebody tweet out a graphic that we were going to play the Ravens Christmas Eve on Monday Night Football. And it's like, no, the Chiefs are playing Christmas. So anyway.
Yeah, you never really know. I mean, some people just want to use a schedule release as an excuse to try to get some notoriety, and they'll make stuff up, and then we find out that it's not true. But I'm pretty sure the Eagles week 13, that one is happening December 3rd. I think the only ones that we know for sure in that they've been announced by that team is, well, actually, I don't know if the 49ers ended up announcing that one yet, but for sure they announced the Cowboys one. And I know, David Lombardi posted about week 13 against the Eagles, so I'm pretty sure that one is happening.
And Cowboys are like week 5 or week 6, somewhere around there?
Week 5, yeah.
Week 5, okay. So that'll be here at Levi's. I saw, I don't know if you know who Twin Maker is, but he goes on Grant Cohn a fair amount. I had him on my show. and he calls himself Twin Maker because he has 2 pairs of twins as children, so 4 kids, 2 sets of twins. I'm like, man, how do you do that? I struggle with one young child to raise. But his brother is named Law Nation or something like that. He's a Cowboys fan, and he tweeted out something about like, "Oh, Cowboys are going to win by 2 touchdowns." And I quote tweeted him. I said, "Are the Cowboys even going to score 2 touchdowns?" Because I don't think they did the last time we played, right?
That's
And then this other guy, I know Cole's Cowboys, jumped in and said like, "Well, we have a new offensive coordinator, right? Because they got rid of the one they had." So I was like, "That's fair, I guess. We'll see." And I know they got Brandon Cooks, who's a good weapon for them. But I still don't think winning by 2 touchdowns sounds very realistic after we've beaten them the last 2 times we played them.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see what that game holds, but we can't really we can make our too early predictions, right? But we never really know what happens until the season starts. And as we know from last year, a game can seem easy, and then it doesn't end up working the 49ers way all the time, right? So yeah, I guess we just never know. That's part of the fun.
So David Matarazzo is asking what time does the schedule come out, and Bebop, I think, answered it where he was saying 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m.
Yeah, it's in
Pacific.
2 hours. Yeah.
2 hours, and that's what Bebop said, 2 hours away. Night game Cowboys. That'll be a fun one. Levi's. Now, if week 5 is very interesting, though, for the 49ers, because I don't know, for me, that's sort of when I was predicting Purdy might be back week 5 or week 7. So it's one of those games where I was happy that we got the Eagles week 13 because you figure it's enough time that if Lance is playing, he'll have a chance to get better. Or if Lance, struggles, there's enough time for Purdy to come in and get synced up and be pretty close to maybe what he was in 2022. And we can finally answer that question of who would have won. I mean, obviously the teams are different now, but still, I think there's a lot of people who want an answer to that, including Deebo Samuel, right? Seems like he's probably one of the most vocal people talking about it out there in the media.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's why it didn't really make a whole lot of sense for that game to happen week 1. Although, I think if Brock Purdy, of course, was healthy, that would have been a great, week 1 matchup just to start the season, knowing that it's how the 49ers ended their previous season, right? But, I think week 13, it ensures that most everyone should be healthy if there aren't any other injuries that happen throughout the year, which there always are. But at least we can expect Brock Purdy to be out there if all holds the same, with Brock Purdy being the leader of the clubhouse through training camp and all that.
Yeah, plus the Niners, the last couple seasons at the very least have started out slowly, 3-5 in 2021, 3-4 in 2022. So I would hate the Eagles beat us because we're breaking in a new right tackle, we're figuring out who's playing quarterback, breaking into nickel corner, whatever, what have you. Anyway, but so that's one thing I like about the later in the season. But I do agree, if Purdy was going to be ready and 100%. Why not week 1? And then you definitely know that most everybody should be healthy unless we have some of these camp injuries like we did last year where Jimmy Ward had the hammy and Kittle, I think, had a groin that kept him out early. So Steven Supremo says, Nix is cool for a Cowboys fan. Yeah, Nix has a killer beard. I had him on back before the Cowboys game. Definitely need to get him back on. He was one of my favorite, real deep voice, big guy. And he was realistic. All the Cowboys creators I had on were really cool. None of them were super homery. It just seems like I think that goes with content creation. I think most content creators aren't super homery because, I think they talk to other people and you don't want to off-put people that are coming on your show by just being like, oh, we're going to slaughter you and your team is terrible, or, the stuff like, I don't know. I get into it on the timeline, but I really try to avoid it in here and in my articles for sure. They're saying let's go. So yeah, let's go. Let me just say one more thing. You got Anshul, 49ers Media, in the house. Say hello, Ted and Steph. He has a great channel. Really make sure you check him out. Give him a like and a subscribe. So as far as what else is going on? So that's schedule release stuff, or at least the highlights from it. We'll learn more as things go on this evening.
Hmm.
Um, what about obviously there's a lot of quarterback controversy going on. It all started with Ian Rappaport saying basically like if Purdy's not ready, he could see Darnold being the starter. Then Darnold's QB coach said not could see it. He said if Purdy's not ready, Darnold will be the starter. And then Matt Miyoko said Darnold maybe the best thrower of a football he's seen in his tenure here, which I think would include Steve Young, maybe even Joe Montana. I think Joe was still a Niner in '91. And then Rappaport backtracking a little bit more recently and saying that the Niners value Trey Lance. And I just would love to get your opinion on all this stuff that's been going on.
Well, everyone has an opinion, right? And everyone's just to fill space because it's the off season. Everyone's going to say their opinion on the 49ers quarterback situation. But, the reality of it is we're not going to know what's going to happen until both of these guys get on the field. And at this point, they are on the field. That is Darnold and Trey Lance together in OTAs. But we'll know a little bit more in training camp and preseason as this continues to go along and we hear more reports from the field. Right now it's just reports based on people's opinions, reports based on people making assumptions, people making predictions, guesses. So it's really just noise at this point. And so I think we truly don't know what's really going to happen with the quarterback situation until come August, September, when the quarterback is actually announced.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I just when I heard the Darnold stuff, I bristled. I just felt like it just upset me that there are people that are ready to write Trey Lance off after maybe like 4 starts, but yet they're like, don't write Darnold off after 50 plus starts. I just thought it was hypocritical, if you will, or biased, or just it didn't sit well with me. Um, and also, I think there might be like different messaging because it's coming from different people. It feels like maybe some of it, and again, nobody knows what's going on. This is just my guess. Is that like maybe Lynch was sort of a Mac Jones guy? Maybe he's been responsible for some of the Trey Lance leaks, and then finally Kyle had enough of it, and Kyle kind of came out and put it straight with Rappaport more recently. I don't know if that's what happened, but that's sort of like the gut feel that I've been getting about the whole thing. I think they like Lance more than they've been letting on.
I mean, I don't know. And to Heinz' comment, that of Kyle, what Kyle said about Sam Darnold. Yeah, I mean, of course he is bullish on Sam Darnold. They signed him. He obviously likes him, but that doesn't mean that Kyle doesn't like Trey. Obviously, we know that Kyle likes Brock Purdy, right? He's still, the top quarterback in the pecking order. Um, you know, until proven otherwise, which may not even be proven otherwise, right? So, I mean, I don't think, Kyle saying something good about Darnold is any, knock on Trey Lance. In fact, Kyle had good things to say about Trey Lance as well. So I think like altogether, he feels really good about his quarterback room. And I think like any way you shake it, like the 49ers, who no matter who ends up being the quarterback, week one or, when Brock Purdy's back, I think they feel like they're in a great situation to, have someone at the quarterback position who's going to, you know, do well enough for them to be able to win games.
There you go. What do you make about the most recent stuff where they're talking about Trey Lance's finger not being healed even up until last camp last year? I mean, I know when it happened, I talked to an orthopedic surgeon and they told me these avulsion fractures are really tricky. If you re-injure it, they can linger. Like it's a 4 to 6 week injury typically, but if you re-injure it, it can go for weeks or months or years if you just keep re-injuring it. And on a throwing index finger where he did it, it is real likely to continue to jam it or get it re-injured. But I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, Shanahan even said that it didn't heal right? The Trey Lance's finger. So while that's not something that we really knew a whole lot about last season, I mean, I think there were a lot of suspicions from people like, oh, like he just doesn't look right. His fingers probably bothering him, things like that. I don't think like Trey clearly never really made it an excuse for himself. And, Kyle said that as well, like that he never complained about it. He just tried to adjust. He tried to continue throwing. I think in trying to adjust, like there were some weird things probably that happened with his mechanics that changed along with that. So now he's at a point where he's past that with his finger and is now looking like a better version of himself, as Shanahan alluded to. So, yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that that happened, and maybe it skewed their thoughts on him early last season. But at the same time, he was the starting quarterback to start the season last season, right? It was just another injury that kept him out. The biggest thing for Trey Lance is his ability to stay healthy. Like, is he going to be able to? And that's the biggest question, because to this point, that's been the thing that has hindered his opportunities the most. While people want to say, it was Jimmy Garoppolo, no, actually, it was more so the injuries that he sustained, and you can't give a guy opportunities when he's not available for them, right? So that's going to be a big thing for him going forward, is just to stay healthy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the injuries, I'd say the click played into it a little bit because Kyle wanted to pop him in here and there for packages, and that kind of got shot down. But yeah, I hope he can stay healthy. I hope he can show what he can do. Anshul was asking for our media, did you see Laura Britt ask Kyle about how Matt Mayoko is saying that Darnold that is the best thrower he's seen for the 49ers? I did not see that interview. Did you see that one, Steph?
No, I mean, I've just been following some of the, like, Lombardi posted a whole thread on pretty much everything that Shanahan said. And what he said was, I don't think that's a big controversial statement. Sam's an unbelievable thrower. He was born to do that. I think Jimmy's one of the best throwers on the planet, the way he can do it. See, that part's funny.
Yeah.
And he
Got to
said, I
take a
don't
little
think
chuckle break on that
he
one.
said, I don't think he gets enough credit for that. But like, I mean, you know, that, literally speaking, these are probably the 30 to 30 best throwers in the whole planet. Like, he's not wrong about that, right? And let's face it, Sam Darnold coming out of the draft, he was like seen as one of the top throwers in that draft, and that's why he was chosen at 3, right? So, it isn't completely um I guess it's fair for, Matt to have that opinion, Shanahan to have that opinion, but that doesn't mean he's like this god level quarterback either. It just means that he can sling it. He can throw the football, which we know. The problem to this point in his career is that he's throwing it to the other team far too often. But that potentially could be correctable. So that's something that I honestly expect that to improve under like Brian Greasy, just because like it did improve so drastically for Jimmy Garoppolo, and also Brock Purdy didn't have a huge issue with interceptions as well. So I think Sam Darnold under the same type of coaching, I feel like it's fair to be optimistic, but at the same time, like, I really don't know. I'm not here to like tell you that Sam Darnold's gonna be this great quarterback, because again, I don't know. I can see any scenario happening, honestly, because he has looked bad in all his other stops, but maybe that was within those certain situations that he was in. Maybe the better coaching will help him. So I don't know.
Better weapons too.
Yeah, I think it's fair to be optimistic, and I think it's also fair to not be, right? Like,
Yeah.
I could see both sides of the argument. But yeah, like I said, we won't really know what the true reality will be until they get on the field and actually start playing, preseason games. Because one thing that Matt Miyoko said on his podcast, because he was like explaining, his quote. And by the way, like, people calling Matt Mayoko a clickbaiter, he's not the one that put this article out saying he said these things. It was KNBR who put literally just that one line that he said as their headline for that article. And if you click that link and you read everything else he said, he really wasn't saying much. Like, he was just saying, oh, like, Sam Darnold does some things better than Brock and Trey. Oh, but Trey and Brock do some things better than Darnold too. Like it was just like a word salad, nothing burger for the most part. But anyway, I thought it was interesting that on one of the latest 49er Talks episode, Matt Miyoko did say he can totally imagine and see Sam Darnold being a really good practice quarterback, like 7-on-7s, because of his ability to throw the football. And then you're not really dealing with, defense on the field. You're just throwing it, and he's going to look great.
Those pesky lines of linemen, D linemen and O linemen, to
Yeah, so
obscure your vision.
he might look great in practice. That's kind of like one thing that he mentioned, and I guess in a way like warned, because like it's like be ready for those reports that Sam Darnold looks good in practice. But until they get in like actual games, it's like we won't really know, right? So preseason I think is going to be important for both Trey and for Darnold.
There you go, 100%. I agree. Let's see. Got Paul M in the house. We had somebody was asking. Oh, Hugh Wilkins was saying, I think they like all three QBs. I do expect Trey to make a jump at camp as his health improved and he knows the system. Yeah, I think so too. Got CG Ruthless in the house saying, yo, welcome CG. Steve Supremo was saying Debo worked out with D-Hop and Barkley. I didn't know that myself. That's important. Somebody was also saying that, Bebop was saying the Mahomes throwing coach might help him get over a small hump too. And that brings up a point, we talk about being, the 32 best quarterbacks. And let's just say all three of ours are in there in that top 32. It might be a little stretch, but even say top 40, there's a big difference between 32 or 40 and numero uno, Patrick Mahomes. So that's what I think, that's why people cringe when Kyle said that about being one of the best throwers on the planet or whatever. Because even though you're top, sometimes stack rankings don't really do justice to what a big gap there is in between those numbers. But anywho, we got Paul M in the house was saying, I think, we already had that one. Oscar was saying if Trey gets preseason first 4 games for himself while Brock is on PUP. I think PUP is 6 games. So I was saying Brock might go IR for 4 games and start week 5, or PUP for 6 games and start week 7 were my 2 timelines for Brock. But nobody knows. He could be ready week 1. It's just there's so little data. All we have is Nick Mullins, who's had the surgery. And like Steph, I mean, can we even say that Nick Mullins is 100% now? I think it's hard to say that he is. We just haven't really seen him do much in a real game that would say, oh yeah, he's back. And so I think it's even harder to say he was 100% after 6 months. And so that's the thing. It's most of the data is on pitchers and they're standing on a mound, not in a crowded pocket. So very different.
I mean, I did speak with Stefania Bell about this.
Oh yeah,
and when she
great interview, by the way, Steph.
Yeah, I mean, it's still relevant today, right? Because we did talk about like Brock Purdy's surgery, the timeline, all that. I asked her if it's conceivable to think that Brock Purdy could be the same quarterback after this surgery, and she did say that, yeah, like he should be. Really, it's for this kind of surgery, it's like more so the mental aspect of it, which is the case for a lot of surgeries. Just getting over that, which every player is probably a little different in that aspect. But I think there was a lot of hope that he would be the same guy. I even asked her, like, will his arm strength be impacted at all by this injury? And like, she very quickly said no. So I was really encouraged by my chat with her, and I think he does have a opportunity to come back. The one thing that she did say about pitchers and having these surgeries is that it's actually a little tougher for pitchers because of just the way that they hold the ball, because the baseball is so much smaller than a football, and it puts more stress on the elbow. So
it's also the arm angle. The pitchers are out here like this, and the quarterbacks are more like straight in line. So
and you're also throwing way more as a pitcher. So
quantity.
all those things put together, I think there is, more optimism towards, a quarterback or like Brock Purdy being able to be okay post surgery.
Yeah, there you go. Ken Mueller says, "Can Trey stay healthy?" That's the $64 million question. We all hope so. Jess from East Coast Red and Golden House saying, "What's up, faithful?" Thanks for joining, Jess. Jared Meadows says, "Give me Sir Lance or Brock." Steve Supremo says, "Restructured CMC to trade Trey, damaged goods." You don't have to restructure CMC to trade Trey. You restructure CMC to pick up a right tackle or pick up a defensive end or pick up a cornerback. Or do you have any thoughts? Because all right, so Steph, let's see if I had this right. I think we were sitting at around 3 million, and we restructured CMC, gave us 10, and then when we extend Bosa, could be like 6 to 8 more. So you're talking kind of like in that 19 to 20, 22 million. You knock off about 5 mil for operating costs for 2023, maybe 6. And you get back into that 15 mil range, somewhere in there, 15, 16, 17 mil. Um, Seems like that could get you, with a little trade capital, could get you a decent right tackle, or maybe Yannick Ngakoue, or maybe Zadarius Smith. Some people have talked about him being on the trade block. Love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things that they can do with that money, right? They can continue to roll it into the season, because you never know. You always have to have some money allocated for the season, because you just never know what's going to happen as far as like injuries, being able to like pick someone up midway through the season. That is valuable. And then also, as you mentioned, they could go bargain shopping at this point post draft, maybe going into camp, look at some of the free agents who are out there. Now, the free agents don't count against the compensatory formula, so that could be enticing to the 49ers potentially. I think most likely, though, we probably do see them roll that money into the season, unless they start looking at some position groups, once they're on the field. OTs is happening now, and maybe they feel like, this group isn't as strong as we thought it would be. Let's add someone else, or kind of like they did last season. Oh, like last season it was Jimmy Ward got hurt like right before. I think it was during the preseason at that point. And, we have to sign someone. Let's get someone like Sean Gibson, or, that's those scenarios you always have to have money for. So I think at this point, they're probably just looking to keep that money just in case for future use.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I was thinking right tackle, but I guess it seems like they're pretty happy with McGlinchey, or I was thinking D end. But are there other places? I mean, nickel corner might be another we might look at, or safety if Jair Brown doesn't turn out as good as we thought. Well, I guess we're kind of covered right now. We still have Gibson and Huff, so that's not that likely. Then
I would argue even nickel is probably covered. They
Yeah, with
probably like
Isaiah
him.
Oliver, and we got Womack from last year and Luter from this year. We got a lot of options for sure at nickel. At least 3 solid ones that I see. Um, so the chat was well. Let me get this first. I guess the chat was having a little argument about, like, can anyone stay healthy? Stupid question. It's football players get hurt. Exactly, Rob. And then it's not like football players have allergies. So, like, I've gotten into fights with people, or debates with people on Twitter about our players injury prone, or certain players injury prone, and I just feel like, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it, and then I guess I'll wait to tell mine till you go first, Steph.
Um, it's tough. I mean, I kind of did ask, or I spoke on this topic with Stefania as well, just because there's so much noise around it, especially after like the NFC Championship game, and the 49ers having this history of injuries. I mean, it could be for a variety of reasons. I mean, yes, you could maybe start to look at the strength and conditioning team. Maybe you can start look at coaching, but I would feel like coaching is probably the least to blame, I guess. Like, I asked her, is it fair to blame you know basically like coaching on some injuries, and she said it's more so just fair to question, like, what they're doing, things like that. But, to just outright blame, I think is something else. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if the 49ers knew why they always have these issues with injuries, I think they would address it, right? But the issue is that they haven't been able to pinpoint exactly what it is. And, we'd all be pretty dumb to think that it isn't something that's being talked about, or that it isn't something that they're always like evaluating what they're doing, right? So
Yeah.
they haven't figured it out yet, but it's something that they look into, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's sort of like a three-pronged thing. I mean, I think there's genetics involved. I think some people just have, they're like maybe their muscles are too big relative to the size of their joints or their tendons and ligaments, whatnot. I mean, clearly some people just should never play football at all. And then I think some of it is bad luck, and then I think there's like a training component to it. Not just training or lifting, but also recovery. I think it's important, like after you lift or work out, that you let your body recover for a day or two or whatever the right amount is. And I feel like there's a lot of good data being collected about that nowadays. But for a while, that was sort of the dark ages. So, and then there's like dirty hits too can cause injuries as well too. So there's 3 or 4 different things I see that factor into it. But it takes a while for me to say like someone's injury prone. Like Kinlaw, somebody mentioned him in the chat. We kind of knew coming in that he kind of had that arthritic knee or tendonitis, at least in the knee, and probably was going to develop arthritis. And neither of those things tend to get better over time. Those tend to be just progressive, that just get worse and worse and worse as you get older. I also want to pop back up. There was somebody asked about the trade deadline and will we pick up Kirk? And I think he must have meant Kirk Cousins. I think as long as QB situation is unsettled, people will always ask about him, especially since we passed on Mahomes ostensibly to wait for Kirk Cousins to become a free agent from the Washington football team that season. And the Vikings ended up getting him because we already had Jimmy G and he was 5-0 after we got him. But do you think there's any way that we would pick up Kirk Cousins?
I guess, like, I never say never, because like this the 49ers quarterback situation has been the most like unpredictable thing to like happen in these last few years. It's like, I guess I can't count anything out happening. And we know that, Kyle Shanahan loves Kirk Cousins. So I guess it just really depends how much he loves him. But at the same time, like, I don't see it happening, just because the 49ers are now at a point where they're trying to keep their quarterback room cost controlled. And you can tell from the moves they made, this season. Sam Darnold was relatively cheap. Brock Purdy, of course, like he has the cheapest contract of anyone in the room, I'm pretty sure. And they're Trey on a rookie contract. So, I think that is what allows them to make moves elsewhere at other positions. It's what allowed them to bring Javon Hargrave in. It's what's going to allow them to do that Nick Bosa extension. So, you always, like, I think John Lynch always says this, like, we look into everyone, and as a team you kind of have to, like, I think you look at everyone who is available that you may be interested in and say to yourself, okay, if we did want this quarterback, what would we have to do? What moves would we have to make in order to make this happen? And then, if you're happy with the end result, then yeah, maybe you can explore it. But if you're not, and you're thinking to yourself, we're going to have to give up too many players, or we're going to have to see a lot of guys go, and you don't really like that scenario, then, you move on with what you have. So it wouldn't shock me if the 49ers looked into it, right? But
Yeah.
ultimately, just based on where they're at right now in roster, how the roster is constructed, I don't see it happening.
We'd have to like restructure Eric Armstead and Trent Williams too. And I know they're trying not to do that because of their advancing age. And we've already got Trent Williams under contract till he's 38 or 39 anyway. Hugh had a good point too. He said Niners play a very physical brand of football. Sometimes that leads to injuries of their own players. Right. We beat up other teams, but it beats us up in the process. There was that famous stat from last year where teams were 0-15 the week after playing us in 2022. but also we had quite a few injuries during the year. Luckily, we got most of them back, but definitely had quite a few go out. Steph, should we talk real quick about draft stuff? I haven't really gotten to that yet. I would love to get your thoughts on the draft. And I'm trying to get through all this chats here because since we're on two different channels, people on
Yeah,
your
we got a
channel
lot.
can't see my people, and my people can't see what your people. So I try to at least click on every chat so that every people don't feel like they're missing out. But also brings up a good point. If you're on my channel, make sure you get over to Steph's channel and like and subscribe there. And likewise, if you're on Steph's channel, please do the same for me. It really helps us to get those likes and subscribes. So Steph, if you want to jump in and talk about your thoughts on the draft, I'd love to get those. And also, I can start playing. I have a banner for that. Here it is. This is just everybody we took and some of the notable free agents too from this season, 2023.
Yeah, so I think, the draft started off pretty strongly for the 49ers with the first pick, their first third round pick, Jair Brown. They traded up for him, and for him to even be available there at that spot, I think was the best case scenario for them, and it felt like it did address a need. Maybe not an immediate need because like we said, Tashawn Gibson is the starter, but like Kyle Shanahan said, they weren't really looking for any starters at any position until kickers, right? Or aside from kickers. So, that was explanation for the Jake Moody pick. I wasn't like thrilled about it in the third round just because, like, from a value standpoint, like, when do kickers usually go that high? It's like kind of never, but at the same time, you are dealing with the one of the best kickers I think that have come out in quite some time. And to some points that people have made, the Patriots made that move in the fourth round for a kicker as well. They got Chad Ryland out of Maryland, who was seen as the second best kicker in the draft, right? So they would have probably gotten Jake Moody in the fourth. 49ers didn't have a fourth round pick, so they just said, all right, let's just get the one need that we do have this season now. And, you know, I'm fine with it. I really hope that he turns out to be as good as, he was coming out of the draft, because I feel like very often we've seen kickers just kind of turn into pumpkins in the league, or they don't quite get to like that ceiling that we kind of, or not ceiling, but like they don't always stay at that same level that they were in college. We've seen that happen now many times. We've seen a lot of, you know, um, rookie kickers not get to a second contract with the team that drafted them, right? So I think that's indicative of something, and I just hope that Jake Moody doesn't fall under, that category. But it's it's obvious what they did like in him. It seems like in college he had ice in his veins. He had experience with all types of weather, all types of fields, and he excelled in every one, right? So I'm fine with it. The Cameron Latu pick was also a little confusing from a value standpoint as well. Just because like I felt that he could have been there, way later. I kind of joked around that I'm gonna pretend that they drafted Braden Willis in the third round and Latu in the seventh, and then maybe all is right in the world. But I've just come to realize that, I think we just need to wait and see what happens with this one. As with most picks, you can't really judge them until like a few years down the line, once we've had a large enough sample size to see these players on the field at the NFL level, right? So I think, yes, for now, it looks like a reach. But I'm gonna hold my judgment a little bit longer. Also, former 49ers GM Scott McLaughlin, he interviewed with Matt Barrows, a piece in the Athletic, and McLaughlin loved Cameron Latu. He actually said he had a second round grade on him. So that's, yeah, and he's someone who knows what he's talking about, right? And here I am, like, bashing on it.
He built the core for Harbaugh. For people that don't
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
he built the core for Harbaugh before Balky took over and ruined it. And then while Balky was ruining the 49ers, McLuhan went up to Seattle and built the Legion of Boom for the Seattle Seahawks. So he definitely
Yeah.
at least knew his draft stuff, and he's a respected source as a draft person.
And
Yeah.
he scouted Latu for like 3 years, he said. So, and another thing that I'm keeping in mind is that Latu's fairly new to the tight end position. He didn't start playing tight end until 2019. He was a former defensive end. He started playing, or he was recruited to Alabama as a defensive end, and yeah, 2019 is when he started playing tight end. So he's fairly new to the position. Everything we've seen is just, I guess, like raw. You know, he talked a lot about his athleticism, and that, I guess, I'm gonna have to wait and see, because like he didn't test very great. Like his testing numbers weren't great. But as we know, you know, testing, agility testing doesn't always, you know, tell the full story, because sometimes some players do play a lot faster than how they test, right? So I think, again, I'm just gonna hold my judgment a little bit.
Did
Um,
you do a grade for
yeah,
for the
I did actually. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I talked a lot about the first day, or the 49ers day 2, which was their first day. And that one was confusing, but if you look at day 3, like day 3 made up for everything for me. I mean, I
Mhm.
think it was D Winters. I love that pick for them, especially like in the 5th round. He plays linebacker exactly how the 49ers love the position to be played. I think he's going to fit in real nicely with the pieces that they already have there. And Braden Willis in the 7th, he was a guy that I kept like telling people I think the 49ers could legitimately draft him. And so I was excited for that pick, just for biased reasons, but also I did like Braden Willis
Me too.
coming out of the draft. And just all around, Ronnie Bell I thought was a really intriguing pick as well in the 7th. So altogether, I think I gave it like a B,
Me
or
too.
B
Me
minus.
too.
Yeah.
I had Brian Peacock on this morning from Locked On 49ers, and he gave it a D plus, and so that's what um, that's what Jim Everett the Great is talking about here. Draft grade D plus. I think he did mention though that he really liked the day 3 stuff, all the 5th, 6th, 7th round picks, and he was open to it. He had a great analogy though when we talk about kickers of why he didn't like kicker in the 3rd round. He said kickers are reverse running backs. In other words, most of the great kickers are like in their late 30s or even 40s. If you look back historically at all the best kickers, and so just a lot of times it just takes them a while to blossom. And so that was his sort of what he said about that. It's
Yeah,
kind of
that's
interesting. And then
interesting. Never thought of
I want
that.
to also call out Trock was doing a little bit of trolling here. I don't know if Trock is I've seen him in some other shows before. But he was saying Sammy Dimes. I'm like, no, no. But you know what? Sam Darnold does throw some nice passes. It's like you said. It's not that he doesn't throw nice passes. It's just that he throws some not so nice passes with them, almost like Jimmy Garoppolo, right to a linebacker or something like that. Just a head scratcher, if you will. And then we kind of got lost in the chat here, and that's fine. I mean, I know we're running short on time because we had talked about trying to keep this to about 45 minutes, and now we're coming up on 3:46. So maybe now's a good time to just say thank you to you, Steph, and to everybody who came out today. We had some great audience interaction. The chat was hopping. Sorry I didn't get to the stuff towards the end, everybody. But everybody, make sure you follow Steph at Steph49K, at 49K Pod, at GS Podcasts. And like I said, if you're watching on her channel, please come over and like and subscribe on mine. Also, to folks on TED Talks Ball, make sure you get over to 49K Pod and do the same. And then, Steph, you were going to let people know about some stuff, anything you had coming up.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I kind of took a week break, so sorry for that, all my subscribers, and I got a lot of new subscribers after the draft, and so sorry I was a little inactive after that, but I'm back to it. I'm gonna have Rob Stats Guerrera on the channel tomorrow to talk about the schedule release and probably make our way too early predictions on the 49ers record. So that's happening tomorrow morning. And, next week, getting back to regularly scheduled programming. Going to be back on Monday with Chris and have our regular set of shows. So thanks, Ted, for having me on. I really appreciate it.
You bet. And welcome back, Steph. Thanks, everybody who came out today to say peace and go Niners.
Peace. Go
And
Niners.
thanks, everyone.